Hello, welcome to the Jellyfish Journals. My name is Susie, and I have been waiting a long time to reveal my reading journal theme for November of 2025. And the reason I specified the year is because I purchased this ephemera kit last November in 2024. As soon as I saw it, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it, and it had to happen this November. Here it is. I am going to do an owl theme for the month of November. And the reason I'm going to do owls and the reason I waited such a long time to do this theme is my grandma Skip loved owls. She had owl statues, she had owls on her dishes, she had owls on the walls. She loved owls, and her birthday, like mine, was in November. Now, my grandma Skip did pass away, and I love to find little ways to try to honor the people that I have loved, especially if they are no longer with us. So I do try to honor people I currently that are still with us that I love. But there's something nice about doing a spread or a theme that makes you think of somebody special in your life, somebody that you have memories with. So my grandma Skip lived in Kentucky with my grandpa, who has also passed away. And I have such great memories of visiting them in Kentucky. I loved my grandma and grandpa so much. And my grandma Skip, well, my grandpa too, they were avid readers. I remember as a child, there were books upon books upon books on their shelves. And they were those mass market books, so like the smaller ones, and they would be like too deep in the shelf. So there'd be like a book here and like a row of books and then another row of books behind that. And then sometimes those were double stacked on top of each other. And I like to feel connected to them because of that love of reading that is also there. Both my grandma and my grandpa were very intelligent people, and I just loved them. I just thought they were wonderful, and so I have been super excited waiting for November to come so that I could honor my grandma Skip with a reading journal theme in her memory. So let's take a look at the ephemera kit that I purchased and some other supplies I'm going to use in this video. This was a kit that I purchased from Magical Craftery on Etsy. I will put the link down below in the box. And I just loved how there were so many different owls. Now, these are probably my favorites. This is probably the owl I'm going to lean to, but I will say my grandma loved them all. And they're just so unique. They're also different. I love how they're hanging out on branches in different directions. This one's got a lot of blue in it. I don't think I'll be using this one, but some of them on this page, like this one here, doesn't have as much blue in it. This one is a lot of smaller owls, which is kind of awesome because sometimes I won't need something as large as, the owls that are on that page there. And I did cut one out to put in my old journal for my plans when I was thinking about my themes for the year. These are drawn a little differently, and they're kind of these brownish tones only. So don't know where I'll put these, but like the branch looks a little more cartoony drawn as opposed to, let's say, this one where the branch looks a little more realistic. But I'm not going to let those kinds of things get in the way of what I'm doing. This one's got some different kind of foliage on it as opposed to pine needles. But I like how this one is all of these different kinds of owls, and they're all in different directions. Look at this guy. He's like, what's going on? This one too. So cute. This is more of the ones I showed on the first page. I just think these are so cool. I have no idea what that thing is, so probably won't use that. This is kind of neat. There's like 3 owls on one branch. This is just a branch. Well, I guess that gives me a little bit of flexibility. This one here has one with a night background. My goodness, guys, I can't talk today. I don't think I'll need that in the background, but that's easy enough to cut out and trim so that I can just get this guy with the evergreen on there. This guy looks fierce. He looks like he's about to attack something. Kind of loving that. Yeah, see, I like the ones with a little bit of greenery on there, but you'll see how I'm going to add some of that in there. This guy just looks completely spastic. Sorry, he looks like way freaked out. I don't know about that guy. This one's awesome. Look at those feathers. I just read Poppy to my class, and the villain is Mr. Okax, who's this like crazy owl, and he thinks he's the king of everybody. And it's such a cool story. If you've never read them, they're by the author Avi, A-V-I, and I read it every year to my third graders, and they just love it. But we just finished it, and so seeing the ones, especially with these tufts above their eyes, make me think of those like devil horn feathers that the book refers to. And these have a little bit more of that orange color in them, so not too sure if I'll use these, but I love this guy here. So I've got these owls here, and I'm going to put my favorite one back on top because I think this guy has so much presence here. And I don't know why this is kind of at the bottom there. It doesn't look like an owl, but maybe it's supposed to be. But I think I could just trim around that and do something creative at the bottom. But this guy is probably my favorite. So I'm going to go ahead and use these here. Now, none of this, you'll notice, came with any kind of background paper. So I found this at Walmart on clearance. And in here, there are a few things I think that will work as a background. I didn't tear them out yet because I haven't quite decided. But we've got this pine cone paper here. And I love that it's realistic and it's large enough it can make a good background. I don't know about this one unless I need some of those orange tones in there. But the other ones I'm looking at, there's some bark. This is really cool. And that could look really awesome with an owl in front of it. There's also a couple of evergreen kinds. So this is like foresty, which reminds me of where that owl villain, Mr. Okax, lives. And then there's also this one, which I'm really kind of leaning towards this. I like that more muted. Like this page here is a little bright. It's really a bright green, which isn't a terrible thing, but I kind of like that this is more toned down. So we've got these pages here. I'm trying not to knock anything off my table. So we've got this here. Then I've pulled out some markers that I think are going to work. So 3 different shades of brown, and these 3 are all Tombos. So we have number 899, 990, and 977. And then I also pulled out 1 Crayola Super Tips, and I've called this color Evergreen. Actually, it looks like my daughter did. And that'll just add a little bit of that green color in there. I've also pulled some washi tape. So I've got this kind of yellowy gold, orangey gold from Archer and Olive. This came in their Wondrous Skies subscription box. So we've got a little bit of that. And then I found these 2 brownish glittery washi tapes in my stash. So this one, I think both of these could work really well layered over, but I kind of like that they're just going to add a little bit of sparkle to these pages since all of the images are kind of flat. I like that these are going to add just some of those other tones in there and just add a little interest. And the last thing I have to add in there are my definitions. Every month I add 3 definitions. So the first one, of course, is owl. And it says animal, a large bird with a big head and eyes. And I'm sorry, I always try to read this in the camera, and I really should just read it in my hands. Animal, a large bird with a big head and eyes and a small sharp beak. Owls hunt small animals at night and make a sound called hooting. Then I have the word smart, showing intelligence and mental alertness, shrewd and calculating in business and other dealings, amusingly clever and possessing a quick wit. And the bottom says disrespectful or impertinent. That did apply to Mr. Okax in the book, but I kind of love how every other part of this, I feel, speaks also to who my grandma Skip was. So I think I'm going to trim off that very bottom piece there because I never saw her as disrespectful. Maybe impertinent. I think most women have an impertinent streak or an ability to be that, and then I did decide to do this word granddaughter. I wish there had been a word grandmother in the pack. But granddaughter says a daughter of a son or daughter, the daughter of one of your children, you are her grandfather or grandmother. And I just kind of love that this will always remind me of why I chose this spread. So this is what we're working with. Stick around and let's see what I create with it. I am going to apologize right now. I woke up this morning completely stuffed up, and whatever I have just whacked me upside the head this morning. But it is October 27th? No, October 28th, and I really wanted to get this out before November started, so hang in there with me. So I thought I'd show a little bit of my process when I do this. Honest to goodness, it is as simple as you're seeing right here. I wanted this bark paper to go along the left side of the page, so I lay it down where I want it, and then I just take a pencil and rough out where I think the letters will be, and then I tear out those bits. That's pretty much all there is to it. I always err on the side of tearing less rather than tearing more, because obviously you can always tear more, but it's a lot harder to go back and put paper back that you have torn out. So I always recommend tearing on the side of not as much. Then I colored in the month November with that darker brown, and I glued this owl on the front. This owl is exactly the owl I picture whenever I think of my grandma Skip. So he's giant and happy-ish right there. I added some of that dark brown glitter washi for the tab, and then some washi down at the bottom. Now it's on to my up next page, which is basically the 4 or 5 books that I am planning to read within that month. So these are the 5 books that I am planning to read in the month of November. They are from my TBR list, but I don't call this page my TBR because I kind of want it to be a little more specific. So I make a decision of the books that I'm planning to read based on my 25 in 25 list and my reading challenge. So you'll see in a minute, Animal Farm is my reading challenge book for the month of November. The other 4 books on this list are just 4 books that have been on my TBR the longest. They've been sitting there waiting to be read and held for a while. So once I decide which books I'm going to read, then I sketch out the titles on the spines with a pencil, and after that I go back with a Pigma Micron and trace over those titles. And the idea is I like the titles on my spines to look as much like the spines of the actual books. I decided for this month that I wanted it to look like the books were sitting on a branch, so I used more of that bark paper and just cut out a thick branch-ish shape. The word owl is going to go at the top of this page, and then I thought it would be cute if this little owl was sitting kind of perched on top of one of those books. So I went ahead and glued those elements down, and then it was time for my reading challenge page. I had forgotten that I had this sticker book, which doesn't unfortunately have a lot of stickers in it that I could use, but it did have a couple of pine needle branches that I was able to add to the edge of this branch. And with the owl at the bottom covering it, it worked out pretty well. All right. I did decide to go ahead and use this brighter forest paper. As I said, I just read the book Poppy to my class, and he lives in Dimwood Forest. And so I decided the foresty paper was going to be a huge part of it. Since the nature of this paper is a path through the forest, I decided to use it as a background. And then I had to play around with the elements that I had already determined would be on this page, but it took a minute to kind of figure out where I wanted them. I decided I liked this little owl up here at the top, and then even though I've done this a few times on some other pages, I thought a pocket might be the best way to record the books that I acquire in the month of November. As I said, my birthday is in November, and there's a good chance I'm going to receive some books as gifts, or I might just treat myself to some. So I wanted enough space to write down the books that I get in the month. I glued down the sides of the pocket and then just taped the bottom of the pocket with some washi, added a little bit of that glitter washi to the top, and stuck the card in the pocket. As far as my top reads page, it was looking a little boring with just these owls at the bottom, so I decided to add a strip of that forest paper on the right, and that's going to do it for that page. All right, now here's where things are going to get a little bit interesting. I pulled out this evergreen colored marker from my Crayola Super Tips collection, but this marker's a bit old, so I did lose a little footage in here. And I will also tell you, I have to start and stop a lot with this marker to get it all used up. So this is my stats page, and this is where I'll record the stats just for the month of November. And I decided just to keep it simple and do some really round leaves. And I needed room for 7 stats. You're going to see I started coloring those leaves in, but that marker was drying out in a bad way. So I had to keep pausing and working on other elements in order to give that marker a little bit of time to, I guess, recharge. I don't know if that's the right word, but if I did give it 30 minutes or so, I could get a little bit more ink out of it. So that's why those leaves look kind of, I don't know, janky right now. I glued the biggest owl I could find on this page, a little bit of gold washi at the bottom. You'll see that I add some washi, some glitter washi to those tabs on the left and the right and across this gold at the bottom. And you'll see in a minute, I will just kind of jump ahead because if I remember right, I worked on the leaves with the marker and then I went to bed. And when I woke up in the morning, I did a few more leaves. And then I went to church and came back and I did more leaves. And later in the day, I just gave up and I went to Target and I did buy some more Crayola Super Tips because that is one of the most frustrating things when your markers are just not working. I added the granddaughter definition at the bottom. I kind of love that the granddaughter definition is on the reading stats page for the month of November, which is mine and my grandmother Skip's birth month. And the biggest owl is kind of just there looking over the stats. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little too mushy. Maybe it's because I'm not feeling well. But I just kind of love the vibe of this whole spread. After all the markers were filled in enough, or I'm sorry, not the markers, the leaves were filled in enough with the marker, then it was time to go in with that Pigma Micron and label all of the leaves. So every month I track how many books I've read, how many pages I've read, how many books I DNF'd or did not finish, how many new books I acquired, and the formats of the books that I read, whether they were in print, digital, or audio. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm just using my normal handwriting and I'm going over the downstrokes a little bit thicker to make that foligraphy look on those on that text. Now, I have had some people request a handwriting video. I know I keep promising it. Please trust me, it is in the works. I don't want to just jump into something until I have a plan. Usually once I have my head wrapped around something, I am gung-ho ready to go with it. So trust me when I say it has been rattling around in the back of my head and I feel like I'm closing in on something. If that is something that interests you, definitely drop a comment down in the box below. So I kind of slowed down the video right here because I think in my fuzzy head state at the moment, a lot of this video was a little more quickly edited than I would normally do. I'm trying to figure out how much of this I need to narrate. Some things like the tabs on the side, I feel like once I do one of the tabs, I don't need to show you how I do the tabs every single time. Some things like laying down a strip of washi at the top or the bottom of the page, that feels like a pretty common thing to do and doesn't need a lot of explanation. But now that I've been doing this for almost a full year, if there is something in my reading journal videos that I seem to skim over and you would like it fully explained, or
you'd like me to kind of slow it down, maybe not edit it out so much or so quickly, please let me know down below. I am happy to talk about my thought process on tearing paper or making decisions of where elements go. I'm even happy to share my pre-planning process, which is basically how I figure out where all of this is going to go, because these spreads probably took me, I would say, close to 3 hours to physically complete all of these spreads. And I chopped that down to a 30-ish minute video. So just feel free to let me know what you think. My last spread of the month is always the books read, and this is where I will glue down the covers of the books that I read in that month. And I like to combine a lot of previously used elements at the very end to kind of tie up and wrap up the theme for the month. So I've got that bark paper, that pine tree paper, and I'm going to put 3 of my favorite owls going down the side here. And I just kind of love it. A little bit of that gold washi is coming back at the top of the page just for that little bit of sparkle or bling, if you will. And then I'm going to layer over that washi with some more glitter washi. And I think, yeah, this time I decided to go with the dark brown. I alternated the glitter washi on those tabs, and so whatever the tab was for that page, that was the glitter washi I used on that page. Hopefully that makes sense, but that way there was always some continuity wherever, whatever page you're on, it always kind of tied into the tab there. So I did slow down this part again, and it's just me layering some washi up there at the top. I decided to put a little bit more of that green paper, the pine tree paper, on the side with one more owl kind of watching over there, and that's going to do it.
So here are my November pages for my reading journal. We've got the monthly title page, and then I love how these tabs are alternating sparkles. I don't know if that's showing up very well now that we've got some owl feathers peeking in the background, but this page is going to be the books that I'm planning to read next. So all of these books I will do everything I can to get read in the month of November. And it's a little bland up here, but I think once I color these in with some of this green and some of the lighter browns, it'll balance out a little bit better. On this page, this will be from my reading journal. I need to read the shortest book on my TBR, and the cover will go here, of course. Then on to any new books I acquire in November. I might be acquiring a few books since it is my birthday in November. So hopefully this little card is big enough to hold all of them. Over here, we've got the top reads, my 3 favorite reads in the month. Then all of my stats for November. Books read, did not finish. New books, pages read, audio, digital, or print. And then finally at the end, we have books read. And this is where I'll glue all the covers of all the books that I read in the month of November. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to like. Oh, I just said that. Okay. Well, if you give it a thumbs up, then clearly you have not forgotten to like, but I would also appreciate if you would click that subscribe button if you would like to see more content. I recently revealed my theme for my 2026 reading journal. I am super excited about it. So check out that video, follow along, and let's do this journey together. Have a great day.